Welcome back. The Clicks TRESemmé ad campaign has brought up hair politics that black women battle every day. That's the view of sociology lecturer Nombuso Shange, who joins us now for this conversation. A fascinating opinion piece that you penned there, Nombulelo. Let's start with the broader conversation around this Clicks advert, right? You've heard a retort from some quarters that says so much fuss and so much energy expended only about hair. And many have been saying it's not just about the hair, is it?
Yeah, definitely. It's not just about hair. Unfortunately, the burden that we often carry as black women is however we wear our hair, whether we intend to or not, we communicate a certain political message. So, for instance, when we wear our hair long and straight, there's the idea, especially in the workplace, that maybe we're conforming, that we're good blacks, that we're not going to be troublesome. But at the same time, our community might not necessarily accept that kind of expression because it's seen as selling out or not being genuine or not being African enough. Without us really understanding the complexities and the reasons behind why black women might make those decisions, be it because they just want to have a protective hairstyle, be it because they have exploitive, oppressive workplaces that don't allow for them to express their hair in more natural ways. So we would love for it to just be hair, to just be a simple form of expression, but unfortunately it isn't just hair.
Yeah, and in a moment we will talk about some of the other conversations that you raise that sort of seek to suggest that, to say, why are black women aggrieved by this advert when, you know, they tend to straighten their hair, etc., etc., that thread of argument. But before I get to that, I suppose it's something that as a black man and any other, grouping in society other than black women will probably not really understand, right? What do I mean by that? I used to have long dreadlocks, and I would, from time to time, encounter people that would have misgivings about dreadlocks and have their own associations about those dreadlocks. But over a period of time, I found that it became acceptable. So I can, grow dreadlocks again and no one will bat an eyelid. I can shave off my head and no one will bat an eyelid. This is particular to black women, is it?
Yes. Unfortunately, with our experience as black women, the experience is quite different from how maybe black men can grow dreadlocks without anyone necessarily questioning them. For us, it's a constant everyday thing of having to explain why you're wearing your hair like this. Sometimes it happens in light conversations, colleagues just being curious, and that's okay. But unfortunately, a lot of the times it happens in violent ways, similar to how this TRESemmé advert has portrayed us. It happens in ways that seek to exclude us because we're not fulfilling the standards of beauty that are often white adjacent.
You are saying in your opinion piece that you are shocked, not shocked, but angry. And basically you're saying that this was an overtly violent way, for the expression of what you call whiteness. And part of the conversation, of course, has brought about white normativity and basically this belief that the standard is white and we work from there. This whole argument. Expand a bit on that argument.
So the reason I'm not shocked is because we must remember this was a capitalist organization operating under capitalist structures and systems. And if we remember the history of capitalism, it was built on the oppression and the exploitation of black people, of women, on our resources. So it's not a shock to me that this kind of thing would happen today, especially because it's also not the first time. If we think back a few years ago, there was the Dove advert, which was also very racist. There was also a few years ago the H&M advert. So this is a common thing within capitalist entities that are in and of themselves unwilling to transform, unwilling to have Black representation in different various levels of the organization, so that these kinds of things don't happen when they have their marketing or strategy meetings, so that there is Black representation to say, hey guys, maybe this is not the right way to portray what the messaging that we're trying to make. But because there's a lack of transformation and of inclusivity in these structures, we will find that these kinds of things will continue to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why I wasn't shocked.
So you then say, when you then saw some of the commentary and sort of discussions that were happening, your shock went, your anger went. You went from anger to disappointment with some of what you were hearing, particularly from Black men, basically seeking to suggest that why are you so aggrieved by what Clicks TRESemmé and Unilever have done? Because you do extensions to your hair, you wear wigs and you wear weaves, and sort of sometimes color your hair blonde, etc. Why did that particular strand of argument particularly disappoint you?
Well, because historically, we've always wanted Black men to be our allies in various struggles, and even today. And unfortunately, in different spaces, for different social justice issues, we often find, especially when the issue resonates mostly with Black women, that Black men are just not there as our allies, or they don't come to our defense. And this was one illustration of this, just going through some of the social media comments and like the article says, portraying Kanye Mbau and other women, strong, influential Black women, as somehow less than, because they then don't fit the standards that Black men think are acceptable for us in terms of beauty standards. I think whichever way you look at it, whether it's from the white gaze or from the male gaze, the problem with both is that Black women are stripped of their right to choose what kind of expression that they want to put out there. They and it's often done in very violent ways, where our beauty is called into question, where once again you could end up finding yourself alienated in your community because you don't fit a certain criteria, or the other extreme being potentially not even finding work or being promoted in the workplace, because the idea is that you're messy, you're untidy, because you express your hair and yourself in a certain type of way. So yeah, that was the disappointment for me, is that Black men were not understanding that the point is that we want a choice.
Nombulelo, I'm almost out of time, but I do want you to bring in this particular aspect. I can only imagine how exhausting it must all be to try and explain these concepts to people that really should be understanding and just get it once and for all, and we all move on. We've got a lot of work to do as a society. We've got many social ills that we are dealing with for people to be feeling that they need to be policing the appearance of Black women. But I liked how you placed it all into context, right? This whole idea of choice, that Black women have always had the choice and exercised the choice, that if I want, I can straighten my hair. If I want, I can keep it short. I can, do all sorts of hairstyles to it. Just take me back to that particular argument where you invoke, for instance, what women in the Shange church do, for example, as well as the appropriation that you liken to what some African Americans have done with the N-word.
So, there's, like you said, there's a lot of historic cases that we can draw from to remind ourselves that we've always been innovative when it comes to our hair and how we portray ourselves and how we adorn our skins. I even argue that modern day weaves and wigs could easily be an extension of or an evolution of some of the old cultural traditional practices, because traditionally black women did straighten their hair using various different tools. Traditionally, black women did color their hair and did straighten and mold their hair so that it fits into certain forms and to certain structures. So this is not something that is, well, on one level, it is complex because the way that weaves and straightening of our hair has been brought to us in the modern context that we find ourselves in has been from a place of whiteness and violence. But at the same time, I think black women have actually taken up this practice of wearing weaves and wigs and have really made it their own. And so for a lot of black women, when they choose to wear a wig or when they choose to put on an afro, it's just because it's a preference. It's just because it's something that they love. It's not because they are trying to fit to certain normative standards, though you also can't necessarily completely ignore the external influence. But yeah, the weave in the way that it exists today, we need to see it for the sort of almost, I will even call it a revolutionary tool that women are using it to empower themselves and to dispel the myth and the idea that if you wear a weave, you are white adjacent, you are a sellout, you're not African enough.
All right. Thank you for your insights there, Nombuso Shange. Really insightful inputs there in as far as the opinion piece that she wrote. And basically the arguments laid out really nicely about what we are concerning ourselves with as a society, policing the appearance of women, particularly black women.